preparing for live stream, and we are indeed live. Welcome, welcome, family. It is Ujama Day. That means it's Wednesday. That means it's Sister Shanice in the house. And as you can see, I've got my guest alongside me, Dr. Claire Holder. Welcome, welcome. How are you?
I'm great. It's been a good day, and I have been looking forward to being with you and your listeners.
Oh, it's brilliant to have you back. And it's also brilliant to have you back, Professor Cecil Gutzmore. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Good to be with you and your millions of viewers.
We may well have millions of viewers, but if I did have, YouTube certainly wouldn't let me know about it. They have a way of tweaking the figures, but that's okay. So welcome, welcome, family. We are delighted to be here with you once again. If you were with us 3 strongs ago, then you will be familiar with our guests, Dr. Claire Holder and Professor Cecil Gutzmore. As you know, they had an amazing role, pioneering role. You know, Dr. Claire was at the helm of Notting Hill Carnival, and we've been hearing the story from the background about Carnival, the context in terms of the racism that existed in the area at the time, the race riots, the murders, the fights. It was all happening towards the late 50s. We even heard about, the role of Amy Ashwood Garvey, Claudia Jones, and various other activists who were very, high profile figures at the time, just before Notting Hill Carnival got off the ground. And the bit that stuck out for me as well is that such was the level of activism amongst us as the people at that time. We commanded the audience of presidents, none other than Michael Manley from Jamaica even came and attended one of the meetings that we had organized. And I was thinking,
Norman, Michael's father, Norman.
Oh, Norman Manley. Okay.
Yes.
And I was thinking, where are we today? Could we, command presidents or fathers of presidents to attend our meetings today? So wow, wow, wow. Our ancestors really have shown us what we need to do as a people in order to be heard, to be taken seriously, and to address the issues that are impacting on us. So where are we at the moment, family, in all of this? Where are we? That's one of the questions I'd like us to think about. Anyway, as you come through the door, please do let the family know that we are live, and please do get the link and share it. I'm looking forward to us having another really interesting conversation with our guest today, because the first show, they just laid the foundation. We're going to be drilling down a bit more into this story, but very, very importantly, we're going to be looking at the impact of the takeover of Carnival and the impact that it's having and has had on our community, culturally, economically, politically, and we're looking at what we need to do to take back the Carnival, and very importantly, what lessons we can learn from this to stop something like this actually happening again to us as a people. So really looking forward to today's conversation. I'm going to just remind you, first of all, before we get into the show today, that it's this strong end that I've got my Black History Month weekender event. If you haven't already got the tickets, please do make sure you do. Audience, it would be wonderful to have you in the house. There are 2 seminars that I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be presenting on both of those occasions on the Saturday, 4:30 p.m. UK time. That's BSM, British Summer Time, BST, British Summer Time. Okay, I'm going to be delivering a presentation on African history in Ireland. Some of you are like, African history in Ireland? Yes, well, before European history, there was African history. Okay, and a lot of that history has been hidden. A lot of that history, you're not going to find it in the mainstream at all. But I've been doing the digging, I've been doing the researching, I've been doing the studying. I'm like, I can't keep all this to myself, so I'm bringing it to you on Saturday. a huge amount of history. I mean, there's so much history that we've got, not just in Ireland, but in Scotland, in Wales, and Britain as well, that we just haven't been learning about. And so, but let me just focus on Ireland for Saturday, and I'm going to be showing you the link between the original Africans of Ireland, the link between them, the Jamaicans, and the Americans. Some of you may know the link. Many of you may not know that there exists a link. Well, you're going to find out at this seminar on Saturday. And then on Sunday, I'm going to be telling you about some of the African kings that ruled over parts of Britain. Because, you know, before European history, when there was African history, Britain was very tribal. It was very tribalistic, and it was divided up into many kingdoms. And there were many kings that ruled over the different kingdoms in Britain, in Scotland, and in Ireland, you know. And who were those kings? Do you know the names of any of them? Have you read about any of them in school, college, or university? And if not, you'll be asking yourself, why not? Anyway, I've been doing some reading, and I've got some amazing stories to share with you and your young people. So I certainly hope you book. It's £10 for both of them. That's two for the price of one. You pay £10 once, and you can attend both seminar events. And Dr. Claire and Professor, it'd be wonderful to have you both in the house as well if you can make it to the seminar events. It would be wonderful. I'd love to share, you know, some of my research with you all, and then you can help to critique it and tell me where I need to brush up. You say, boy, if you're going to come with that, you know, you have to bring this, you have to bring that. Let me bring it. So I got to try anyway. So yes, family. And there's a lot more people doing the research as well now, and coming out with this evidence. So these are new days. It's a new day for information. This is the information age. And so, yeah, I'll be dropping a link in the chat as well. So please do join us. Okay, I can see some messages. Absolutely fantastic. So that means some of our family are already coming through the door. This is exciting stuff. So as I post
Are there
the
messages about the carnival matter?
Oh, okay. Let's see what they're messaging about. Let me go onto my phone. Family, let me know as well where in the house that you are watching us from. And also, yeah, drop your messages, okay? Did you watch the first part? Did you watch part one to the carnival? If so, you know, what are the key questions that you may still have? Because we didn't get a chance to do the Q&A last time. I think there were probably lots of questions that you had, but you know, we ran out of time. And so let us have your questions now, and then let me turn down my phone, and then we can take some of your questions as well. All righty. So I'm just looking in the chat. Let's take a look and see who we've got in the house. Rise up, rise up. So we've got Sister Karen in the house saying greetings, B1, that's Black First, Queens and Kings. Rise up, Sister Karen. Where are you in the world? We've got Kwame Aboje in the house saying, Hotep, Sister Shanice, Baba Cecil, Mama Claire, Sister Amma is rising up. Everybody in the house as well. Brother Kwame, always great to have you in the house as well. We've got Sheriff S in the house saying, big up Dr. Shanice. Doctor, you know, we get new name. Big up
Well deserved.
Thank you. I think I gave you your name, Professor, didn't I, as well, Cecil? Yeah, so, and it's stuck and well-deserved too, isn't it? Big up Dr. Shanice. And my old lecturer, Cecil Gutzmore, he's now Professor Cecil Gutzmore. She says, and to big up everybody in the chat, ask Claire Holder, Dr. Claire Holder, why she sold our Carnival to Coca-Cola, aka Lilt. I blame her for the commercialization of our Carnival. So we'll come back to you for a response to that. Okay, my sis? So this is the dilemma, you know, because when our culture then gets, you know, big, everybody wants a slice of it. What do? Do we hold on to it, or do we allow others to get a slice of it. But rise up. Our sis will answer that question in a very short while. Teresa's in the house. Rise up, Sister Teresa, watching from the USA. Good to have you in the house. Sister Afro Jabba's in the house, watching from Ghana. S.A. Smith is in the house. Rise up, rise up. Family, if you're watching and you're not able to message in the chat, that's because you need to sign in, okay? So please do sign in. We would love to get your messages in the chat. And our sister was asking, why did we allow Lilt and Coca-Cola to get involved in the carnival? She sees that as the beginning of our downfall. Back to Sister Dr. Claire. I know you haven't even introduced yourself as yet, but we will get to the introductions afterwards, I promise.
Well, I will certainly answer that question. It is one that is asked time and time again. And I think those who ask the question do not understand the economic and financial dynamics of Carnival and the need for money to support the artistic disciplines of Carnival, i.e., those who create the costumes, those who put the music together, those who sing the calypsos, those logistics that we take for granted as members of the public, but we don't address how these things are to be paid for. And what sponsorship does is that it provides money to enable us to fund these things within Carnival. When you engage in sponsorship, it does not mean that you have sold anything. People often ask me, oh, Coca-Cola, they have benefited more than they have given. I say to them, that is not the case. People think Coca-Cola benefited financially from becoming involved in Carnival. But I remind people that Coca-Cola has 70% of the soft drinks market in this country. So we're talking well over 1 billion cans of Coca-Cola sold every year. So getting involved in Carnival is not going to increase their sales through advertising in Carnival at all. In fact, our relationship with Coca-Cola through Lilt was a very good one because it actually demonstrated, one, that Carnival had regained the credibility that it should have had in the first place as a cultural event. Because when these corporate companies get involved with you, it's because they want to associate themselves with your image. And the image of Carnival as being fun and joyous, peaceful, was all there within the drink of Lilt. It's about Caribbean fun, Caribbean style, and all of these things. So when we were approached by Coca-Cola, I think it was 1994, saying, look, we would like to sponsor the Carnival. Of course we said yes, because apart from the fact that the drink was compatible with the whole Carnival ethos, they brought in very valuable know-how in terms of merchandising, marketing, and all of the things that Carnival could not afford to do with its own brand. They brought in much needed income to Carnival that helped to support all the Carnival groups taking part and providing the entertainment for you to come and be part of on Carnival Day. And most of all, they brought that wider publicity to the value and the benefit of Carnival and its role within British society and its potential, its economic potential that had eluded us thus far, because you must remember just 40 years ago, in 76, well, it's 50 years now, Carnival was labeled as nothing but a riot that takes place in Notting Hill and not to be touched by any corporate company. But once Coca-Cola became involved and gave us quite a large sum of money, lots of product, etc., and got really some publicity, but a lot of criticism because there were those within Carnival who didn't care about how Carnival was funded and undermined that relationship by going to Coca-Cola, accusing it of commercializing Carnival and piggybacking off the back of the success of Carnival, which was nothing from the truth. So they endured a lot of criticism and a lot of backlash from certain activists within the community, but the relationship was positive. And they brought us to the attention of the corporate world because once their period of sponsorship finished, other big companies followed. Companies like Virgin Atlantic followed, companies like Western Union followed, and that took us and took the Carnival to a global level and integrated within these communities because these are global services being provided. And if we could have a relationship with a global service provider, then it means that Carnival is brought to the attention of the global community. So what more could we want? I know now they're wishing that they still had this opportunity to get that sort of wider sponsorship because Carnival has no money. Although people are saying, oh, there's money here, money there, money there. The reality is that money spent in coming to the Notting Hill Carnival does not go to the Carnival. And the money to service and fund the costumes and the sound systems, the steel bands, has to come from somewhere.
Wasn't a big artist also associated with them, with a song, with a chant? I don't know. Who sang the song?
So, yes,
Trinidadian artist was.
oh, yes, of course, Marshall Montana, Lil, the totally tropical drink. So Coca-Cola didn't just concentrate on getting involved in Carnival by pimping off of Carnival, so to speak. It actually also brought up artists from the Caribbean to take part. It really promoted Carnival. They actually employed people to get within the press and say to the press, there is nothing wrong with the Notting Hill Carnival, and it's time that the Carnival is given good publicity. So I think those who criticize the relationship do not know the full story and do not understand the full story. And I hope that my short explanation tonight actually assists in getting rid of that negative view that all sponsorship in Carnival is negative, because it isn't. It was a very positive relationship with Coca-Cola stroke Lilt, and it took Carnival global.
Wow, rise up, rise up. Thank you, Dr. Claire. So there you've heard it. If you hadn't heard it before, there you've heard directly from Dr. Claire, you know, what the advantages were of that relationship with Coca-Cola and Lil. It put Carnival on the map. It financed Carnival. It got Carnival the good press that it was seeking. It was a very positive relationship and significantly, you know, helped Carnival to get it where it was trying to get to. So yeah, what is your response? What are your thoughts now? I saw some hearts going up just as you were talking there. So we had, you know, someone or a few people in the chat that were agreeing with what you were saying there in terms of the benefits. And if we didn't go with a commercial sponsor like Coca-Cola, who would you suggest finances Carnival? How would you suggest that it is financed? So let's get some of your thoughts and opinions. Maybe some of you have got some good ideas or some good contacts, you know, because Carnival still needs financing today. You know, from the last session, we was hearing that there isn't a budget as such, you know, for those who are doing the costumes and the sound systems and all of the things that need financing in Carnival. So how is that supposed to be financed if we don't get commercial sponsors? Let's hear your thoughts and opinions on that, please, family, as well. Thank you so much. We'll go back to the chat in a little while, but before we do, let's ask both our guests to introduce themselves to you, our wonderful audience. Should we start with Professor Gutzmore then? So we can give Claire a little
Okay.
rest.
It will be clear to our audience that my name is Cecil Gutzmore. I'm African Jamaican, lived in the UK since 1961, with the exception of 11 years when I was back in Jamaica. I've been a community worker here, community activist, educator, including teaching at university, both here and in the Caribbean. And essentially that's me, fully committed to our people and to understanding and passing on African history and culture.
Welcome, welcome, Professor Gutzmore. Also, please do let our audience know where they can find you at 10 a.m. British summertime. If they wanted to listen to you, this, I tell you, when it comes to history, when it comes to critiquing, politics and what's going on across the continent, almost any conversation that we have, Professor Gutzmore is able to talk on it. He's extremely well-read, family, and we learn so much from the professor every Monday. Please tell them where they can also, sit at your feet and learn on a Monday.
Okay. That's clear.
Okay.
Oh no, I'm asking you. Tell them where they can find you on a Monday.
No, from officially 10, but usually about 10:30 until 1. Our excellent brother Kwame Malongo, and myself, I'm really his guest, so it's his show. Sit in and exchange ideas and information with the Galaxy Afui radio station audience worldwide, galaxy-wide.
That's right. I'll find the link and I'll post it in the chat, family. And so whether you're working, whether you're traveling, you can have the earphone in your ear and you can be listening to Professor Cecil Gutzmore alongside Brother Kwame.
And that link which you will give does work, and it's actually get a good reception. Anyway, that's what I have when I use Galaxy Afui, whatever that little link.
Xeno one, yes. So
no, not the Xeno one, the direct one. It doesn't go through anything; it goes direct to the station.
Oh, okay. Yes. This link goes direct to the station. So you can, on some platforms, you're able to get to the station via our website, which is www.galaxyafui.net.
Yeah.
Okay, go there and there's a link, but it doesn't work on some Android phones. I don't know why.
Oh, I see. Because somebody is saying to me that it doesn't work for them, and it works wonderfully on my phone.
Right. Okay. Yes.
So, iPhone, haven't you?
Apple, iPhone, certain phones, you can get in. But if you've got an Android like mine, you can't get in via the website. So then you use the Xeno link, and everyone can get in via Xeno. So I'll send you that link in a little while in the chat. And in the meantime, let's go over to our other guest that we've got tonight. None other than Dr. Claire Holder. Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you. I am Dr. Claire Holder. I come from Trinidad. Although I was born in this country, I was sent back to Trinidad when I was 9 months old to be brought up by my grandparents and to be with my other siblings. So I was child number 14 in the household. And I had a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful childhood in the Caribbean, being brought up in the bosom of a very large and rowdy and culturally grounded family. I have a very famous uncle who was one of the pioneers of the steel pan, the famous Boots Davidson, who is my mother's brother. And I didn't meet him. I only heard about him. I didn't meet him until I came back to this country in the late 60s when my mother brought us all up to England to further our education. I went to the local grammar school here in Notting Hill, called the Burlington Grammar School for Ladies. And it was quite an elite school whereby there were three, when I went there were three black girls out of 500 girls. So you can imagine how almost exclusive it was. But as the school became comprehensive, it had to take children from the local catchment area, which was Notting Hill. So more and more Black children were given the opportunity to go to that school and be really quite well educated. Um, then after school, I studied law and I became a barrister in the 70s, 1978. After studying law, I decided I didn't know enough about international politics, local community politics. And although I had been working in Notting Hill through the church, and I was on many local committees by then, I still felt that I didn't know enough. And so I was lucky enough to get a grant to study peace studies at the University of Bradford. I was part of that very first cohort in 1978 to study peace and how to bring about peace in different parts of the world, negotiating treaties and doing all the things that I really welcomed, conflict resolution, and just generally learning why and how the various wars that are going on started. It was good. I came back from Bradford and I started practicing as a barrister. I was lucky enough to get chambers with a pupillage in the chambers of the then Attorney General, who was Sam Silkin. And I had quite a prominent pupil mistress. Her name was Anne Malalieu. And there were other notable politicians who went on to become serious politicians like Michael Howard and others who were in those chambers and who I had the great opportunity to work with. These were all fine barristers from whom I learned a great deal. When I finished
Did
my
you have something to do with Sherry Blair during your
Sherry Blair and I, we were in college together. Um, and I found her to be a wonderful human being. She was one of the few young white barristers who actually spoke to Black barristers. She was very warm, very welcoming. And, I've lost touch with her, but all positive memories. I never met Tony at that time, but that was it. And
as well, some would say.
indeed, the current head of the Commonwealth Secretariat, Patricia Scotland, she was a classmate as well. And I think most of the Black barristers or the Black students actually were foreign Black students who had been sent by their governments here to study law and who went back to their respective countries and did great things. One even became the president of one country and another. So we were a great cohort of young Black people, young, vibrant Black people, and more importantly, young, brilliant Black people, because there was not one person who just wasn't bright, and you had to be bright, you had to demonstrate, look, we are serious Black people, we are not intellectually challenged, and we were here to develop not just ourselves, but our communities. After I had been practicing law for about 13 years, there was a crisis in Carnival. So I almost switched careers and I started working in Carnival voluntarily to and at the same time trying to practice. But Carnival took over. It really, my love of Carnival led me into literally giving up my career for 13 years just to work with Carnival and to try and make it better. I currently now work as a senior Crown prosecutor um, for the Crown Prosecution Service. I am doing criminal law. Some will say, oh, after going from defending for all those years, you're now prosecuting. But believe me, it is a wonderful learning opportunity because I now know and I now feel as though I know a lot about the laws of this land and I can speak eloquently about legal matters. At the same time as working um, within Carnival and indeed within the law, I went on to do my PhD or doctoral studies in um, the built environment, the discipline of the built environment, looking at how we manage the built environment. And I used Carnival as a case study because Carnival had taught me and taught us and this society so much through the practices of coordinating and bringing stakeholders together, and of course, cohesion is the basis of every society. And Carnival was a wonderful case study in how we bring our people together so that everyone is celebrating with the same aim and objective of development. So that was my PhD, which is freely available online for anyone to consult. It's called The Impact of Professionalism on Organizational Effectiveness, a case study of the Notting Hill Carnival. Because during those 13 years of the Carnival, we developed professional practices that are now referred to globally. I mean, my thesis is so well consulted from different countries in the world, not just in relation to its subject matter of Carnival, but the whole idea of how you organize and manage society. And that's the impact of what we created in Notting Hill. So Notting Hill Carnival is not just seen like the authorities in this country as being almost like a pariah. It is actually out there teaching and from which people are learning. I do lecture from time to time at different international events, although I haven't had any such engagements since COVID. But everybody wants to learn not just how to manage an event, but how to manage their communities and societies.
Didn't it once win an award as the best run arts organization in the UK?
Yes, we did. We won an award as the best community run arts organization in the UK. And
And how many
that,
arts community organisations are there in the UK, by the way?
thousands.
Thousands that you won. Oh my gosh.
Not black community, so
The
all the
entire
communities.
UK. Yeah.
The entire UK. That was won by the Notting Hill Carnival because of the serious things that we had done and the strategies that we had employed. And I must say, I did not do these things on my own. I had very, very fantastic and great support from my colleague, a Ghanaian called Christopher Norte, who, and of course, your friend Chaba Adesebo. We were great together as a
And
team.
you must mention your publicity person.
And my dear friend Stephanie Harwood, who I met through Coca-Cola, incidentally, because she was actually sent by Coca-Cola to manage the sponsorship relationship between them and Carnival. And after her contract with Coca-Cola finished, she stayed around to help Carnival. And she is the most amazing person who taught us so much about how to tame the press and how to market without spending your budget. And so, and of course, the biggest stakeholder of the lot in Carnival, the people of Carnival. We Black people of Carnival, whose heritage Carnival is, I learned so much from us And we as a collective, we have so much to give. So that's my introduction of me. I am happy, happy, happy that I am part of such a wonderful and productive community. And it doesn't matter what the ups and downs are, we are still one people, but we've got to learn how to tame those who are dissidents, so to speak, and who go out there and betray us. We've got to learn to deal with them.
That's something that we're not very good at doing, actually. We don't only have that problem here in the UK, we have that problem in almost every country in Africa, where we have those treasonous, treacherous ones who betray us, give the drop of a hat and sell us out. And yeah, we do need to know how to deal with them. That was an amazing introduction, Dr. Claire, and it really just showed us, you know, the enormity of Carnival, really. And so, you know, as we go forward talking about Carnival, or when we think about Carnival, we need to see this for the international giant that it is. Someone dropped in the chat that Anthony, rise up, brother Anthony, says Carnival generates 296 million for London's economy, according to the Voice newspaper. That's right, for the economy. Yeah, so that's the hotel industry, the catering industry, the airline industry. What we've got to think about as well, and that's probably another show on its own, is how we can capitalize on that 396 million. Why are we not providing, you know, specific cultural events, carnival linked cultural holiday events, so that everybody around the world wants to get a ticket for our carnival, pre-culture entertainment, the carnival itself, and post-carnival, even more carnival entertainment. You know, there's so much that we could tack on to Carnival, because it's already got the international appeal. So, you know, it's going to market itself. Can you imagine, you know, if we had some of those wonderful groups with their costumes at the airport to meet and greet, plane loads of carnival revelers that are coming in, and we take them on our carnival bus to a hotel, a black hotel, or hotels that we've got an arrangement with. And there's carnival themed events at the hotel, and then we take them to Carnival and pick them up at the end of the day and back to the hotel, and there's a Carnival Caribbean themed meal. Can you imagine? We'd have to book out all the hotels in London for something like that. So although it may seem as though we have lost a lot in terms of our creativity, in terms of, you know, what we can actually do actually to build something that tags onto it, you know, tags onto it and takes back from it that which is ours. I mean, I think the potential is still there. So I'm going to take a couple more comments from the chat, and then we're going to go into the heart of the conversation, because time just always goes so quickly. And I know what's going to happen towards the end. We may not have time again, but you know what? I've kept next strong free just in case, just in case. So let's see what we got going on in the house. Bro Kwame Boje says, Baba John Henry Clark told us we have no friends. And you're so right. You know, Sister Shanice, we are guilty too. What are we guilty of? There's a conversation going on in there. Sister Afijamo, that's right, Sister Shanice, that African people should be benefiting directly from Carnival, but it seems like only the Wazungus are benefiting. Maybe at the moment, but what are we going to do to change it? You know, we can take it back. You know, but you heard about strategic organization on a national and international scale. I mean, are we ready for that level of organization? Because if we are ready, and if we're prepared to put the energy into it, we can take back this giant. Yeah, we certainly can. Loretta, welcome. Police training day, she calls it. We haven't mentioned the police, but yeah, they're another major stakeholder who get huge sums of money, millions, not billions, millions from Carnival. And what do we get in return? Hostile faces and blocked off roads and some mismanaged people, street management mapping. Anyway, Kwame says, Hotel Brother Anthony, we should be sponsoring our carnivals, not non-Africans. Yeah, I mean, where are the Africans sponsors of Carnival? Have we got any major black sponsors at all? Dr. Claire, let's bring you in at this point here.
We, unfortunately, we don't like to support our own events. You know, let me give you the story of the relationship between the Notting Hill Carnival, say, and Radio 1 and how that began. When we came into Carnival, there are three live stages in Carnival, live stage areas where traditionally you would hire musicians to come and play, and they were given a free concert at Carnival's expense because Carnival had to pay for those stages. Now, when I came into Carnival, we had a budget of £150,000. That was all the money we had to organize this event that was already attracting 1 million people. And there were these three live stages, and the person who ran the stages wanted £50,000 to put on these stages. So can you imagine £50,000 of £150,000 going to one person? Our finance director looked at that and said, no, 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 this is not going to happen. The live stages are not what you call a core activity of Carnival. You can listen to music anywhere at any time, but not on Carnival Day. He says, but we must learn how to benefit from those live stages. So we're going to franchise them out. Whoever is the highest bidder, they'll get the live stages and they will have to take on the expense of setting up and managing and bringing in their artists, etc., so that that money will not come from Carnival, but the benefit will come to Carnival. We had a black radio station bidding for it. We also had Radio 1 bidding for it. At the end of the day, the black radio station basically wanted it for next to nothing. And their argument was, we black, it's a black thing, we just making a contribution. Radio 1 said, okay, fine, it's a much bigger entity, mind you, and they had the budget. We'll pay for it. And they did. They paid 10 times what the black radio station was offering. And not only did they pay 10 times what the black radio station was offering, they brought in only black artists to be on the stage. And they put up a fantastic professional setup. How could we forego Radio 1? I endured a lot of personal criticism about that policy. But the black radio station, which would have had the support of the community had they offered something proper. Currently now, we see on the streets banners for black hair and beauty products, banners for black companies, etc. And when you actually check what's behind and the funding behind that banner, that group that they're sponsoring probably only gets about £500 as opposed to the £10,000 they need. And there's nothing they can do about it. So marketing and sponsorship and the generation of a carnival economy has to be strategically considered, not just based on the loyalty of black industry making an input, but the wider global industries making an input into supporting an event that we as a community will benefit from. You know, we have to look beyond just it's a black thing. The economy in this country is not black, and there is nothing wrong in getting support to create our economy, which is what, you know, you reach out there to get, not just you can't just rely on your community. Because as well, yes, I gave the example of the Black radio station and Radio One. But generally, as Black people in this country, I must make allowance to the fact that a lot of us and a lot of our companies can't afford to sponsor because they're cash strapped or people are, so to speak, trying a thing. And they set up these businesses on a shoestring budget and they can't extend towards supporting events in Carnival. So I don't want to be overcritical about these companies and misrepresent why they are not supporting the Carnival. But there is a general problem. We don't have the money slushing around our community, and those within our community who have the money prefer not to invest. Unfortunately, that's what I have found.
Well, I've put on enough events to know that we do struggle to get the support of our community to support other community initiatives at any level. And it's not as if I don't think we don't have the businesses and the millionaires in our community. We do have the millionaires. Look at all the footballers, for example. If they look, some of them get like 1 million a week. They got money slushing around and they don't know what they got. We've got, if the commitment was there, I think we certainly do have the money within our community. The big problem is that our community, I think, don't invest in our own community to the extent that they should. I mean, we should have a football club in every community in the name of every Black footballer that there is. Black footballers, professional Black footballers, should be falling over themselves to set up a football club in our community. Every one of our, multi-millionaire rappers should have a supermarket in their name, be creating jobs and opportunities for our people. But, where are these people in our community? I don't see them. They're not making a presence in our community. Yeah, you get one or two who've got a particular alcohol brand, that they've been brought in to promote. I mean, but what good is that for our community? So what do we do, family? We've got BBC Radio London, whoever they are, knocking at our door, offering 10 times what our community is offering. We want to give it to our community, but it also needs to finance itself. And our thing is, well, is a Black thing, so we're not appear not really. How the thing I go wrong? What we are gonna do? So when we talk about we have to learn to do better, if we want to maintain control of our things, because the risk is when you bring in other people, them go on take over and take control, isn't it? And if they're a major stakeholder, then major stakeholders also have a major say on how things go. But if we want to maintain control, we've got to finance it. And we've got to keep control of the thing, I hear what you're saying in the chat, but we have to be real as well.
And Sister Shanice, just remember that there are examples of Black people investing in the community, sportsmen. Like I remember when the Lennox Lewis College, Lewis gave, over £1 million towards setting up a college in Hackney. And unfortunately, those who were put there to administer it didn't really administer it in the interest of the community, and it soon disappeared. So whilst there are good examples of sportsmen and women probably getting involved in the community, they also have had such negative experiences by those in the community who say they'll run these things that some of them are actually put off. So we can't just criticize them for not making an input. We must also look at ourselves as a community.
Absolutely. And that's because we have these problems in our community of these individuals within our community, and they're not dealt with. They're not taken out, they're not exposed, and they're not removed from positions where, they can cause these sort of problems for our community. Just one more point, one more comment from the chat, I think, and then we're going to go into the meat of the conversation today. What's this conversation about? Okay, Sheriff, Sister Afrojamo, talking about the food, Sheriff said, big up Sister Afrojamo. Yeah, exactly. There were more Caribbean and African companies catering to us back then than there are today. So yes, we used to have, it used to be like an opportunity really for Black Caribbean businesses to do business. If business was bad for the whole year, those Black catering companies and those Black businesses knew that on that day they would make enough money, to be able to live, But it's been taken over. It's been hijacked. Sister Claire, do you want to talk about what happened? Why is it that now we seem to have all these different catering companies from all these different nationalities, and to some extent the flavor of the Caribbean seems to be disappearing now? What's going on there?
Well, the Black street traders are still there and they dominate. I think what has happened is that this has been all part of the takeover of Carnival by the local authority. So the street traders are now paying 10 times the price, and they are allocated the stalls by the local authority. So they bypass the whole Carnival, and it is the local authority that is making the money from the street trading, because the economy was such. There were Black traders who, Black traders founded the trading in Carnival, particularly the Jamaicans, who were very, very enterprising. And whilst the Trinidadians were jumping up and dancing, the Jamaicans were coming out with their big pots and selling the food. And then it grew from there, and you remember wonderful traders like Mrs. Heslop and Brother P and Sister this and Sister that, all of whom used to relate to the community positively. It's like this year, there were some old traders left from back in the day in Carnival, and they're still trading. And we learned of the passing of that wonderful man called Wenty, the big time trader. And as I stood there talking with Wenty's daughter about how important her father was to the Carnival community and all the things that he did, I began to learn more about Wenty and his role, not just within our Carnival, but within the Black community in South London, and his off license and his organizing so that he could help the other traders buy in bulk using his know-how, his contacts, etc., to benefit other traders, Black traders. But all of that has now gone because the local authority has completely taken over the street trading of Carnival. Um, and it's a pity. So they don't mind who they allocate the stalls to. There's no guarantee. And also, of course, not just in who they allocate the stalls to, but the total layout of the street trading in Carnival, where you you walk down a road and there are 10 stalls in a row selling exactly the same thing. And how is that attractive? How does that showcase Caribbean food? Back in the day, you knew that you had a stall from, say, St. Lucia selling this, that, and next to them would be a stall from Jamaica selling what is traditional Jamaican, and you mix it up so that the whole of the Caribbean could be showcased, and everyone stood a better chance of making some money. And it's all gone, unfortunately. And I put it down to the lack of effective management by those that came after us. And it has gone downhill. And now I think we'll never get the street trading back in Carnival. We'll never be able to
Never
make
say
any profit.
never.
Yeah.
Never say never. If
Never.
we organize ourselves and start putting pressure on that local authority, I think, we ought to be able to get that back. It should never have been theirs in the first place. But let's go into the meat of the conversation now, because, we do need to have the conversation. We do need to get onto the conversation about what we've lost and, how we might be able to get it back, what we would have to do to be able to claim back Carnival. So I think, 3 strongs ago, we'll come back to the questions in the chat. Thanks for your comments. Please do. Yeah, continue your comments. But I think last time you were here, I think we got to the point where we were talking about the takeover, or what happened in terms of you being pushed out of the office, because we'd heard about the incredible work that you was doing now to get back the credibility of the management of Carnival. It was being recognized internationally. Your committee was being called upon, to give advice to other arts events, how to manage things. It was doing phenomenally well. And one day, I think you turned up at the office and they were changing the lock
Yes,
on
yes.
the door.
In,
Do you
in
want
actual, yes, let me lead from there and I'll talk about that story. In actual fact, I had been at the office all day working because it was May and we were putting plans in place. May 2002. And we were preparing for 2 events. We were participating in the Queen's Golden Jubilee, and we also had Carnival 2002 to organize. So I'd been in the office all day. And I knew there was tension within the office because a couple of the directors were really quite openly hostile to me and had been for several weeks. But I ignored them because you get that sort of backbiting and stupidness, and I put it all down to jealousy. But that evening, I got home and I was at home sitting, and I got a telephone call from a young man called Randolph Grimes, who happened to be passing the Carnival office at the time on the bus. He was sitting on the bus, and he said to me, "Well, what's the police doing at the Carnival office?" And he said, "All the lights are on, and I could see 3 of your directors in there. Can you come quick, see what is happening?" So luckily, I live less than a mile from the office. So I got a lift there from my brother. And when I arrived, I looked in the window and I saw 3 of the trustees who were building this hostility towards me. And they were inside of the office with a locksmith, changing the locks. And the police, one senior officer on one side, a senior Sergeant Tyrrell, his name was, Sergeant Tyrrell, and another of his officers on my left, one on my right, one on my left, and then a van load of police officers across the road, and telling me I cannot go into the Carnival office. And so I was standing there asking why, what's happened? "Oh, we've been given orders that you are not allowed to go into the Carnival office, but we can't tell you why. We've just been given these orders." Strange, what orders? Who gave these orders? And then I could see the activities going on because the Carnival office had a sort of shop window, a very large shop window. And then they switched the lights off and came out, and the locksmith changed the lock on the shutter. And Ansel Wong simply came up to me and handed me a letter and said, "We are here to protect the assets of the trust. She's not allowed to go into the office." Another director came out, this one, Ashton Moore, and actually took the locksmith with him, said, "Come on, I'll give you a lift home." So he went to his car. And Ansel Wong and Debbie Gardner just kept repeating, "You're not allowed to go into the office." And that was it. And they all,
You were the chief executive at this time.
I was the chief executive, yes.
Okay.
And well, by that time I was not the chair, but the chief executive, because I had relinquished the chairmanship to become the chief executive, because as chairman, I had been as chairman for 8 years, and it meant that I could not be paid for doing a full-time job. So when we got the Coca-Cola sponsorship, that was the only time Carnival could afford to pay me for doing a full-time job. And so after 8 years of, I was then paid, but I had to resign the chairmanship. And the chairmanship was given over to other members of the board. And I was employed to be the chief executive. And that is what happened that night. But what the three trustees, Ansel Wong, Debbie Gardner, and Ashton Moore, didn't realize was that they hadn't changed the lock on the back door. And the finance director, who was also a university lecturer, would often go late to the Carnival office, lock himself in, and literally work half until God knows small hours of the morning. So he used his key to enter the office through the back door and found everything strange. You know, the door to his office locked, locks changed. But at least he was able to enter the building and phoned me at home and asked me what was going on. So when I realized he was in the office now, I was able to go back to the office and call on the other directors who didn't know what was going on, what had gone on. And so they ordered security to come and be in the office overnight. And we stayed in the office until the next day. Uh, then that morning, the secretary came to the office as usual for 9 o'clock and said that she'd heard on the radio that I had resigned. And so she was coming to the office to see how come I resign and I don't tell her that I have resigned. And so that's how it happened. It was a very brutal taking down. Nobody's explaining anything to me, using the police in that way. I was able to be released from the office where I was basically trying to keep it open. And I rushed straight down to Scotland Yard to ask the Deputy Assistant Commissioner, why has he sent officers to the office to do what? What had I done? And he said, quite frankly, I know nothing about it because this is a local policing matter, and the only person or the only people who can command the local police to do such a thing is either the Greater London Authority, i.e. Lee Jasper, not even the local authority, but Lee Jasper in particular. And so I had to be satisfied with that answer. And then I started getting letters from a solicitor called Farrow and Co., sent on behalf of the three errant trustees, accusing me of all sorts of things and saying that I was not allowed to go back to the office. And bear in mind that this is an office that I financially guaranteed so that Carnival could have its own office. And over the years, I had been ensuring that Carnival had its own office, an office that looked prestigious and that demonstrated how we as a community could look the part, could look professional, and could provide an environment in which the Carnival disciplines could meet and thrive, plan, prepare, and in an office in which we could develop a proper administration. And that's how we worked. And so the office had to be closed down while they then sent in their people who literally threw away all of the records that we had developed over the years, all the archives of old Carnival film footage, all the books, the magazines. They were found and thrown into a skip by those trustees and their henchmen. And so the Carnival office, all the trace of the things that we left there, gone, gone. And then they moved out of the Carnival office and spread rumors that they had to get rid of me because I had stolen Carnival money and they were going to have a forensic audit to get to the root of the theft. In the meantime, of course, over the years, we had saved over £250,000, which was there in the bank account, and which they, after getting rid of us so brutally, plundered that bank account, plundered. They were paying themselves to do this, do that. They were having, as I discovered only last week, champagne parties, giving out free champagne, this, that, thinking that all of this was necessary. And this was money that we had saved, with an aim in mind to get a carnival building, to buy one that actually said the office or the home of the Notting Hill Carnival. This belonged to our community. And all that money just got plundered. But the interesting thing about it, the authorities
Hello,
said
guys, and welcome to the Tech Explorers
nothing,
channel. So,
but
this is
allowed them
an addendum,
to
more like
carry on
a
managing
very
Carnival
brief
and
addition
organizing
to
Carnival.
the
In the meantime,
PayPal
I
class,
was
all
out
right, the
there
PayPal
still
training. Now,
wondering
I
what
discovered
had
that as
happened and
Nigerians or
why.
as Africans, or
And
if you're using a
luckily for me,
PayPal from a country
at the
where
time
PayPal
they
restriction
had
exists,
their
all
coup,
right,
we had just finished the annual audit. So the our auditors, who were PricewaterhouseCoopers, the largest and most prestigious auditing company in the world, were actually able to write a
and perhaps you have
comprehensive
created your
report
business PayPal
on
for
the
whatever reason, you
investigation
discover
that
that
they
when you
had
want to
done
receive
into my
money,
handling of the
a lot of
finances.
deductions have been
And the
done on
last
that money you're
paragraph reads,
receiving. All right.
there
So the
has
best
been
thing you want to do, or the
no
best way to receive
nepotism,
money in
no
that
evidence
sense,
of any theft,
is to create
no
a
financial
payment
plundering,
link,
no
which you can
this,
always
no that,
send out
no
to
the
your
other.
clients
And
or to
this
your
report was
customers
sent
or to
by
anybody
them to
that wants
our
to send you money
funders,
via PayPal. All
to the
right. So you
trustees
send them the
themselves,
link
and they
that you
totally
would
ignored
create
the
from
report
your
and
account.
carried
So
on.
anybody who wants to pay you should pay
And
you on
that
your
was
money,
it. I
usually being
stayed
done on the PayPal account.
unemployed for 3
Requests,
years,
all right, you click on
whilst my
request, you could
name was
see it's
dragged
also
through
at
the
the top
mud,
side
not
here.
just here in England, but also in the Caribbean. Front page of the Guardian, or not the Guardian, the Express in Trinidad. Tobago born chief executive of Notting Hill Carnival um, has plundered the assets of Carnival and whatnot. And this article really offended my family in Trinidad because I come from quite a well-connected family. I mean, my cousin was Lord Chief Justice and things like that. So you can imagine seeing this article on the front page of the Express, and it was shocking. They even sent me copies, one of them in one of my uncle's handwriting. This is what appeared in the Express. See what you can do with this. Sue them. I ended up suing the trustees because in those 3 years, they actually withheld my wages. I had no wages. I was unemployed. I had to sign on. And even when I signed on, somebody wrote to the Department of Work and Pensions saying that I had stolen Carnival's money and I've got it hidden. So they even stopped my dole for 6 weeks whilst they carried on this investigation.
And they also tried to mash up your
My
legal career.
They tried to mash up my legal career, writing to the Bar Council saying that I was a thief. Um, they did so much nastiness. It beggars belief that we as Black people, I felt crucified. I felt crucified. And I was powerless and speechless. I couldn't say anything. Uh, uh, I was so stunned by what had happened because none of it was true. And how come the bacchanal, as we like to engage in our community, how come that bacchanal was able to go and spread like that and take hold? Everybody thinking I'm a thief, everybody thinking that my family had done nothing but stolen from Carnival, which couldn't be further from the truth. And it was only years afterwards that people started coming back to me. Since you've gone, we haven't had this. Since you've gone, we haven't had that. Since
There
you've
was
gone.
a calypso by that.
Yes, there's a calypso, Calypsonian made up a calypso. Since Claire gone, we have no money. Since Claire gone, I can't even buy a cup of tea. Since Claire gone, because of all the things that I used to do to help build up the carnival disciplines, like ensuring they got sponsorship, ensuring they got appearance fees to assist them with the costs of coming on the road and things like that. All these things that I knew were priorities for them, and make sure that I went out there and worked on their behalf to get them financed. And then all of that was stopped while those trustees plundered the bank account of Carnival.
Tell the listeners about your successful law case.
In the end, anyway, I took them to court.
Yeah.
And in 2005, in fact, that was when the case was heard. I see, after 3 years, the case was heard in the Chancery Division of the High Court. And I won. The judge found absolutely no fault. And the lead trustee, a fellow called Ansel Wong, who really made the maneuvers, the judge asked him, well, why? Why did you do this? Why did you kill the goose that laid the golden egg?
That was the judge's own phrase.
And he simply said, we were led to believe. The judge says, well, you were the trustees. Who could lead you to believe?
Right.
He'd rather not say. And that's.
People are finding this unbelievable. And the Jamaica Drunko, welcome, good to have you in the house. He said, were these people black? Because I don't think he can believe that it was black
They were
people.
all black. All black.
Wow.
And, they carried on with their careers. They carried on, spreading rumors. And now, Ansel Wong pays me a backhanded compliment. I saw in a magazine the other day, he was being interviewed and he said, nobody understands professionalism and administration like Claire Holder. Well, yes, that is my trademark. I am a very good organizer. I didn't just wake up and think I know about Carnival. I actually went and trained and got myself a second profession as a chartered secretary, just to be able to service Carnival and make sure we demonstrate Black excellence.
As well as 6 MA.
He knows my story better than me. And yes, I did do 6 master's degrees.
Wow.
Just to be able to learn more about and equip me to handle Carnival and make Carnival superb. So every single one related to some aspect of Carnival. I did one. I hate adding up. Yet I got a prize for a very good master's degree in finance and administration. And I got through. To me, it became mind over matter. I had the goal. I wanted to make Carnival better. I wanted to be known for making a useful contribution. And that's how I could do it, because intellectually I was quite strong. And I didn't have a family at home I had to run home to. And I was able to work and study and make Carnival the be all and end all of my life, so to speak. So
While you were building Carnival, while you were building it up to be, the magnificent, internationally renowned carnival in the world, you had a team behind you of trustees who should have been there to support you, who should have been there and had your back. Instead, were colluding and plotting as to how they could take over, how they could kick you out and keep you out, so they could plunder the resources, take the position where they get the credibility. I mean, it's difficult to get into the minds of people like this, to have someone with your professional level of expertise and your commitment, and to see all that you was doing for Carnival, for those men, to then come together to do what they did. I mean,
Two men and a woman. Because believe me, the women were worse. The women got personal. They got personal, and it was
so there
all
were
about
women trustees. So there were men and women
and
trustees.
women, yes,
And
and not just women trustees, but there were women amongst the stakeholder groups, like your mass people. There were a couple of women there who were downright vicious. Like I had to watch my
you
back.
out as well.
It's
Wow.
it was a pure jealousy thing. And I think part of the problem, and I reflect on it, what motivated them to be so nasty? Because it wasn't as if I had had an argument with any of them. Some of them had never even had a conversation with me, yet they were prepared to say really quite nasty and mean things. But then that's apparently what happens once you climb the ladder. People just take shots at
But
you.
what's your analysis of why Ansel Wong and Lee Jasper acted in the way that they did?
I think my analysis of it is that they acted the way they did because they saw Carnival at that stage as being as having the potential to help them promote their careers and promote their image. Because you must remember, not only were we super credible at that point, because we had, personal invitation of the Queen to come and assist with the planning of the Golden Jubilee, all based on, it was a personal invitation. And when they threw me out, one of the trustees actually phoned Buckingham Palace to say, well, we'll replace Claire. It was that obvious. Or in the case of Mr. Jasper, he had the ambition of being a politician. Now you've got 1 million Black people coming to Carnival, 1 million Black people who could be good constituents for his political ambitions. So clearly he needed me out. And mind you, I had run-ins with him before, because in 1989, when the community voted for me to take over the Carnival because it had run into so much trouble, there was a lot of hostility coming from Lee Jasper and a friend of his called Joel McLaughlin. And I remember one night them verbally assaulting me, in the most despicable way to try and get rid of me. And people were telling me I was a police plant just because they knew I was a lawyer. I was this, I was that. You don't know her like I know her. They didn't know me at all, Yeah, da 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 da. She only presents a nice face, but she's this, she's that. And I've heard it all. And my granny always used to say to us when we were children, if you don't go outside, nobody could say anything about you. They can't say they saw you do something down the road because you weren't down the road, you were inside. But as I have grown up, I realized that, Granny, that's not true, because I didn't go outside. They came into Carnival to beat me up. So it doesn't matter whether you engage or not. If people do not like you, they don't like you. But really, I think what hurt me the most was they have an argument with me. They don't like me, but don't destroy Carnival just because you don't like Claire Holder. Claire Holder can be replaced, but what you've done to Carnival, what you have done to Carnival is unforgivable. Because they got rid of me. The first thing they did, they didn't know how to handle the administration, so they gave over the rights to the street trading to the local authority. And that's how the local authority got it.
There you have it, family. If you want to know how it is,
so
and how it is that the local authority ended up with the responsibility of deciding what the fees were going to be to the street traders, what the positioning was going to be. They handed all of that over, not realizing the economic golden egg that they were handing over to the local authority because they couldn't manage it. And from that story, I can see, Dr. Claire, that the carnival became very political because I remember when the GLC Lee Jasper, they wanted to put carnival in Hyde Park. And we as a community had to rise up against it. I remember them wanting to take over Carnival and put it in the park, for heaven's sake. And we was like, no, that'll take away the whole essence of what Carnival is all about. Lee Jasper at that time probably wanted Carnival, didn't he, in his department. I think he might have been culture, to do with culture and arts. And
the mayor's personal advisor.
He wanted it for his own personal aspirations.
And I remember,
manipulate. And maybe you just weren't manipulative enough. Yeah, they weren't able to manipulate you. They weren't able to get their hands in the cookie jar while Claire Holder was there. So they thought, get rid of her. Yeah. And they could stick their hands in a cookie jar, have their champagne party, spend all the money, not have to account to anybody, keep the local authorities sweet, give them responsibility for managing and earning. I mean, how much income does a local authority now get just from the street traders alone? I mean, roughly, how much is it per stall on average?
Some stores are paying £3,000 for a stall, when in actual fact, we used to charge £250.
And then how many stores, how many stores are there?
Currently, Kensington Chelsea has 500 and something stores. And yes, and Westminster has another 300.
That's 300,000 from stores alone. Over £250,000 income they handed over to the local authority because they didn't have the expertise. They couldn't be bothered to go and learn and study like you did to get the skills that was needed in order to manage it. And they had obviously no good intention for the wider community around this. It was all their own personal, selfish aspiration. I mean, that's what I'm feeling about this. What's been said in our community here? Oh my days. This is, we've got to learn from this family, because that means that anything that we grow in our community, if we don't learn from this, it's going to happen again and again.
Also, it's important to add that everything I say can be corroborated with the court papers, in which there were countless affidavits, and indeed the solicitor they got to try and bring me down, Farrer and Co., those solicitors dumped them in the end. The local authority dumped them in the end because they could not sustain the lie. The local authority said, thank you very much, we've got the carnival now, you go and swim, basically. And when the judge gave the judgment, it was another year before I was able to get my money. And in order to get my money, I had to actually send in the bailiffs to them because they didn't see why they should pay me or compensate me for what they had done. But the judge made it quite clear in his judgment that I am awarding her this sum of money, and it must not come from Carnival funds. It must come from your funds because you did what you did without reason. And they just didn't bother to pay. They didn't bother to pay. I took them back to court. They didn't. They said, okay, judge told them they had to pay. Okay, another 6 months has gone by. They haven't made any moves. Okay, I took them back to court again, and I was representing myself. And they didn't pay. And in the end, the judge actually showed me how to get a process server and employ a company to collect the debt for me. And I ended up having to send the bailiffs in.
And then they had to pay. Well, I'm glad they had. Yes, they
And,
would.
and I was the most wicked woman in the world. She wicked. She could have allowed that to drop. I did not. They didn't care that I had endured so much pain, that they nearly ended my career that I studied so hard for. You know, they didn't care.
Credibility in your name as well, in your country back
Everything.
home. You
They
know,
couldn't. They didn't care. They
mm,
didn't care. And what also surprised me, senior figures in the Black community actually called me in to have a word with me to tell me, don't take them to court. It won't do Carnival any good. I thought, shame on them.
oh,
Because at the end of the day, they're not looking at what they were doing. But they get these senior figures to have a word with me and then turned around and said, see how unreasonable she is? It's
mm.
just, but it, you know,
And
that
they
was
were probably
when,
friends of theirs as well.
oh
Yeah,
yes, they
they
even wrote statements in their names against me. And the judge actually would not allow them to use those statements because the judge looked at the statements and said, these statements all look suspiciously as though they were written by the same hand. Now that was fraud. That was fraud. And those senior figures who was asking me to throw in the towel, don't sue them, etc., they didn't even know that their names were being used like that by those trustees.
Wow.
There we are. Anyway, but
And
you
all
know,
the records that they threw out and they dumped all that history, they obviously didn't even understand the value of
they
that
knew the
history.
value.
Let me just
They
say
knew the
let me
value.
just say something about that one. It's not anybody abstract who threw away those documentation. It's Ansel Wong. And later on, about 3, 4 years ago, they tried to appoint him as manager of the Black Culture Archives. And
Oh,
I put a lot of effort into making sure that he was not the occupant of that position, because this is a man who's been put in charge of an archive with a history in which he destroyed an archive of our most important institution, the Carnival, that Claire Holder had assembled. And oddly enough, the trustees of the Black Cultural Archive don't appear to have cared at all about the facts that I put in front of them. And the only thing that stopped them appointing him was the correct claim that I made, because I was there when it happened, which is that while he was an education officer in an entity in Brixton, the Abeng Center, he had got a schoolgirl pregnant. And it is because that allegation was the first one I made, absolutely true, and because of the rules about um, what's the word? Saving, protecting, safeguarding. The rules about safeguarding meant that they couldn't ignore that. It had to be taken to the police. And that's the only reason why the trustees of the Black Culture Archive didn't leave him in place, that particular man. This is the man who played a terrible role, as the one that Claire talks about. If they'd had a proper case against the person who was the director, all you had to do was assemble the board, lay out the case, call the membership, put it to them. Nothing of the sort. It was all lies. They were meeting in Ansel Wong's house, the directors who engaged in this conspiracy, and they did it on behalf of the local authority, the same Crown Broadcasting in Chelsea, who we now know murder people at Grenfell. It's the same institution, right? And so this is something that I'm not sure. I think Ansel Wong is a fool, because the way in which they brought down Claire, all of those lies against the documented evidence of audits from the best auditing firm in the world. How are you going to say that such a person is involved in theft and nepotism. There's never any truth in it. But the way they articulated that case brought odium on the Carnival. Ansel thought, as Claire has already implied, that somehow he was just going to be able to inherit this entity, but the lies and accusations redounded against the Carnival, and so it wasn't heritable in the way that he thought it would be. And what they inherited, they stole and destroyed. Ansel got, as I understand it, if I'm wrong about this, you can sue me, he got 10,000, him personally, out of the money left in the accounts by Claire intending to buy the Carnival building for a supposed finance plan, which amounted to just adding noughts onto what Chris Naughty had written. It was a completely idiotic, but he got £10,000 for that. And the squanderation that they engaged in after that, including leaving the Carnival office and going to occupy a desk in the office of a firm that half belonged to the person who they then appointed as chair, Chris Mallard, right? Some terrible, awful things happened. And 20 years later, something along identical lines has happened in the Carnival, with the way in which it has been handed by that same criminal local authority to an entity called Carnival Village Trust, itself extremely dubious, and maybe we should spend some time talking about that.
Yes, so we got to the point where Ansel Wong had taken over with his cronies, totally mismanaged it, emptied out the account, were having champagne parties, handing over bits of the role of Carnival to the local authority. And then, yes, what happened after that? We've got you've taken us to a place now where the local authorities somehow seem to have been in a position where they could decide who manages and who runs Carnival. So what happened in between?
Okay.
Yeah.
What happened in between was that there was the Carnival entity that Ansel Wong led, that destroyed the Carnival in 2002, 2003, never really properly recovered from what it had done. All they did effectively was squander the money, then get into trouble, and they were eventually replaced. And there have been 5 or 6 subsequent Carnival committees.
Who replaced them? Who
Well,
made the
they get a grant from the local authority. They get other grants, including from the
Arts Council.
from the Arts Council and that entity that the Greater London
Authority, Greater London Authority,
GLA, and others. So there's money coming in. A lot of that money doesn't actually go directly to them. For example, there's a gigantic grant that's to do with stewarding. It never actually, it's in the Carnival budget, but it never goes into the hands of the Carnival committee.
When in actual fact, that money was generated by us and used by us to employ local people as stewards, and they are good local people. Now that money, which has been increased substantially and is paid for by the GLA, goes to a firm that has nothing to do with Carnival, and that doesn't even want to employ one local person to be a steward in Carnival.
Wow.
They did all of it.
So we're looking at now the franchising of bits of Carnival. So, the management of the store, that's been franchised to the local authority. The stewarding has been franchised to a private company.
At one time, the management of Carnival was franchised to a company called London Street Events, which was led by a police officer who was the sergeant in Carnival, who supported Ansel and them to carry on the coup. So that's how ridiculous it became. London Street Events.
So importantly, there have been the succession of Carnival management entities none of which had been up to the job. There came a time in about 2015, 2016, when increasing numbers of people in our community understood that all was not well. We, PSCF, actually had a meeting in Brixton about Notting Hill Carnival, where Notting Hill Carnival people came to talk about what was happening. People were worried about safety issues, people were worried about policing, people were worried about management issues, etc., etc. And then, as things got worse in 2016, I was in charge of a process, initiated a process that led to something called ROC, Reclaim Our Carnival. There was a gigantic public meeting in the Carnival Village building.
The tabernacle.
The tabernacle. Hundreds of people there. Very clear that we had to rescue the carnival from the mess that it was in. Part of the mess was an invention by the local authority, because the committee that was running the carnival, even though it wasn't running it well, the case that the council had against it was completely empty. They just decided to make a set of accusations against Lancet, which is the name of the carnival body, and say, we won't fund you anymore. Lancet actually looked at what their case against it, and there was no substance. It's just that they didn't have any money to sue the council for telling lies on them. Those were the circumstances in which Reclaim Our Carnival was formed. At that public meeting that I mentioned, the council chief carnival officer came along and offered, out of the blue, this is in the moment of Grenfell, those people have just died and the council has responsibility for it, they're dying of shame. They come along and make an offer of an audit. Professor Gus John was the chair of ROC. He was chairing that meeting. And Gus said, of course we'll accept your offer to do an audit of the relationship between Carnival and the local authority. What they had in mind, and they wrote terms of reference which reflected this, what they had in mind was an audit of their view of what the relationship had been. When the terms of reference came, I rewrote them. Gus helped to rewrite them. And we had terms of reference for an audit, which the council was committed to paying for, into the reality, the truth of the relationship between the carnival and the council. And that report, that audit, done by a West African professor called Mr. Dove Edwin, makes it clear that the local authority, the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea, has for years, contrary to the claim that they subsidized Carnival, been ripping off Carnival in all of the ways that are documented in that official audit, which they themselves paid for. So when we say that the racists of that local authority are dishonest, and we just had a report about Grenfell in which same people, it says not only that they are dishonest, actually dishonest, but complicit in their dishonesty in the death of those 72 people in that building. It's the same authority that we're talking about. Now, that is the authority that is able to manipulate the reality of the Caribbean and maybe African community in the UK, most important cultural event, as well as most important, if you look at it that way, business, right? They're the people. And they do it via a grant. And the grant is 100,000 peanuts. It's nothing like anywhere close to the actual budget of the carnival, but that is what they use. Now, the entity called ROC that I founded had the intent, and we were doing it, of talking the council out of the way, talking the police out of the way. We had one meeting with the police, addressing issues of safety, addressing issues of management, addressing the whole thing, and reassembling a proper carnival committee, or indeed assembling a proper carnival committee that was composed of people elected from the community and also representatives of the various disciplines, the sound systems, etc., etc., etc. That was the idea. We could see the council digging around amongst rock members and other people to find somebody who was prepared to accept their money to run the carnival. They came to one sister and she wasn't able to get it together. And then what do you think happened? Same Ansel Wong from 2002 was at that time one of the trustees of an entity down the road called Carnival Village Trust. Carnival Village Trust had been sitting in the center of Notting Hill whilst the Notting Hill Carnival declined into the mess it was in 2016. They had said not a word about safety, they'd said not a word about policing, they'd said not a word about management, they'd said not a word about financing. And these are the people who suddenly decide that they are competent to make an application to run the carnival. Now, what else was wrong with them apart from having sat in the middle of Notting Hill and done nothing about these issues? What was wrong with them, including the fact that they themselves had gone to Trinidad and recruited a woman to be their finance officer who had stolen, and she'd been sent to prison for it, who had stolen £750,000, £750,000 under their noses. And their only excuse was that it is they who eventually found that the money was being stolen, not their auditors and not their funders. I had a meeting with them because they claimed to be consulting the community when they wanted to be given the carnival. So there are still questions to be asked about why they went to Carnival and recruited that woman, and questions about why she was allowed for a period of time to steal that large amount of money, and whether and to what extent some of them who were trustees were implicated and implicit and participant in that overall theft. I don't have any evidence for that, but that is a gigantic question. And we've heard allegations, including allegations from the woman herself while she was in jail, about them being complicit in the theft. So that was one part of it.
She was essentially their fall guy.
Yes.
Who was she? What was her name? Do we know her name?
No.
It was in the presence of like Nadia Ali or something.
Yeah, exactly. But her name doesn't matter. It's a matter of public record. She was convicted of the theft and spent time in prison. So the fact that her name,
If she pops up again, we need to.
No, she's been deported. She's done.
Okay.
So the fact that I don't know her name at the moment doesn't particularly matter. I mean, I could get it in just by looking on my phone or whatever. Now, what else was wrong with CVT? The theft. The fact that they had been involved in no way whatsoever in any positive aspect of Carnival, apart from housing the steel pans of two local bands, both connected with Mangrove, right? That was their connection to Carnival, nothing else. In addition to that, the entity that the council gave the Carnival to turns out to have been running an annual deficit of more than 100,000, probably more than 300,000 annually. Now, everybody knows that a local authority, the first thing that they said is, when you make an application to them, the first thing they say is, what are your finances? And if you have a deficit annually of that scale, that disqualifies you automatically. That is the entity to which the council, the Royal Barkensey and Chelsea, gave the Notting Hill Carnival to run. It was Ansel Wong was the vice chair, and a white guy called Ian Comfort was the chair. I think he's a lawyer. I think quite a distinguished fellow, but I cannot see any. He's an ex-council officer, and I cannot see any case for giving Carnival over to an entity with no record, with criminal connections, with dishonesty connections, run by council officers. So effectively, it's a sub-body informally, but actually, formally it's an independent entity. Informally, it's a sub-body of the local authority. So the carnival has been given by the Royal Board of Kensington and Chelsea to itself to run. And
Just like
the
Grenfell
police,
and the TMOs.
the police are presently saying that the carnival is badly run. If that is true, and it is, it means that the Royal Board of Kensington and Chelsea and its appointed agents are running the carnival badly, and that is true. But it also means, if the Commissioner of Police is saying it, that the Commissioner of Police is participant and party to the mismanagement. A big part of the mismanagement and the lack of safety and so on of the carnival all flow directly from the input and mismanagement and misconceptions, including of routing, of blocking off, and all of that. The whole physical management of what they call the footprint is in the hands of the Metropolitan Police. I heard in 2017 the Metropolitan Police's Gold Commander say that one of their big fears is that there will occur in Notting Hill something like what happened at that event in the north of England, Hillsborough, when all of those people died as a result of foolish and wicked policing. So, and then he goes on to say that even though they have this fear, they are not, that safety isn't their responsibility. How can you be managing a site of systemic unsafety? You just have to walk round the Notting Hill Carnival or through the Notting Hill Carnival on a Monday, and you know how dangerous it is. You know, if you walk through it, that the local authority, while making all of this money out of Carnival, provides toilets that are a disgrace. The loos that they have
It's wheelie bins.
are wheelie bins underneath wooden
Toilet
toilet seats, and the wooden shacks. It's a disgraceful wooden shacks. There are not even enough of them. Leaving aside their external unattractiveness. So
take a sip of the drink. Let me just have a look how we're doing in the chat here. Blah blah blah. Rise up, Stephen in the house. Thank you for your wonderful comments there. He's bringing up both of you as well. And Kwame Oboje, thanks for your messages as well. Yes, all our carnivals do belong to us. Our family is very clear that the carnival belongs to us. We need to be looking at taking it back. Some disbelief that some of these characters that we've been talking about are actually Black people, you know, disbelief and shock in the chat. Loretta's picking you up, Sister Claire. The stone, the builders refused, you know. Rise up, family. Are you okay now to continue?
yeah, I think, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
It's important that the business, right? So much of what has been said is about how the council has taken over the carnival. But in 2018, they did something very specific about ownership, right? Not about ownership of the grant, not about the capacity to hand it over to anybody, whatever. They claim to have done a local consultation on the basis of which the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea now says that it owns legally the Notting Hill Carnival. And that has been the case. I have correspondence with, I think her name is Sue Harris, with the council officer who is responsible for bringing that about. So that is the most dangerous development. And anybody who thinks about it for a moment will know that there can be no basis for that. The council had nothing whatsoever to do with the carnival, with the creation of the carnival. The non-Notting Hill Carnival, London Carnival, that
Claudia Jones and them developed was nothing to do with Notting Hill other than as a fundraiser for, as we were talking about last time, the people who had been charged variously and wickedly with offences during it. So those first 4 or 5 carnivals, nothing to do with Notting Hill. And when the year after Claudia died, there's no carnival. And then the initiative that was taken by the London Street Free School and others, including Ronnie Lasler, again, nothing to do with the carnival, with the council. They agreed a grant of £100, not £100, and then they withdrew the grant before they paid it over, right? After that, we have a man called the council leader. What was his name? Sir Morby Crofton. And Morby Crofton said, he welcomes the Notting Hill Carnival, not funding it, not anything, but it's good to see Black people in the streets of Notting Hill letting off steam, because it wipes the blot of the 1958 race riots off the borough's escutcheon. That's what Sir Morby Crofton said. It was nothing to do with them. They never owned it. All they've done is ripped off. And it doesn't seem to me that we as a community should leave it with them. And I think that there's a public law case and an equalities case which they would never win if we as a community just assemble the legal and intellectual and maybe even a little bit financial resources to take them to court over it. It was never theirs. It's the creature, the cultural creature of the African Caribbean communities, historic and local creativity here in the UK. If it's owned by anybody, it's owned by the African Caribbean community, and we should not leave it in the hands of the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea, who are criminals and rogues and racists.
Now, this is where we are at the moment with the carnival in the hands of the Royal Kensington and Chelsea Borough, claiming that they own it. If I can go back to you, Dr. Claire, in the early days, was there any patenting of the name? Was there any claim made around ownership of the name? Not at that time. So
there isn't now, and I don't think the name should be patented. Everybody knows the carnival, the Notting Hill Carnival, is where the carnival started, so you associate it with Notting Hill. Carnival is such a generic word, and in our community, carnival represents our freedom. It represents the founding of our nations as African people with rights.
And there would be
being able to kind of run off with the show almost,
but not the name.
No, right. They claim to own it, and they now claim to own everything. So the fight would have to be that there is no historic basis for what they're doing, nor is there any legal basis. Local authorities have a legal duty to act properly. And the Notting Hill Council, the Royal Board of Kensington and Chelsea, has, in relation to Carnival, the dirtiest hands imaginable for reasons that
imagine giving it back to an organisation that's got Ansel Wong on it again. The same individual who's responsible for running down the council back in the Carnival back in 2006 or whenever it was.
Back in 2002.
In 2002.
Yeah, and they were complicit. Yeah, and if
all that money went missing then. And here he is again in another organisation where over 500,000, nearly 750,000 gets stolen out of the account. And then they want to put him in charge of accounts. I mean, they seem to enjoy working with people that are just unable to manage the finances. And I'm thinking, this organisation that's running an annual deficit of over 100,000, if a Black organisation in the borough where I am, was to have a deficit of even 5,000, 10,000, they would never be allowed to carry that deficit from one year to the next. And this organisation's running at a deficit of over 100,000. It has to be a white-led organisation. We didn't get into whether it was or not, but we're thinking it must be a white-led organisation. And so, and who's heading up the organization? A former member of their
A white former council officer who's
Wow.
qualified, he's a lawyer, but
Yeah,
that's
so
no
pretty well-
qualification for being in charge of the Notting Hill Carnival. And there are real disqualifications in the arguments that I made about the nature of Carnival Village Trust.
Yes, yes,
But,
most
but,
definitely.
but the
You'll never
situation,
believe this. We are 5 minutes away from the top of the hour, and we haven't even got on to talking about, you know, where we go from here, really. But I think what you've exposed and made very,
Well,
very
what I suggest you
that the
do,
local
what I
authorities-
suggest you do is that we do have the third session next next Wednesday.
Thank you, because
One,
our chat has been
two,
on fire,
yeah.
and I apologize that we haven't got round to.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Let's do the follow-up, because where we go from here, as you say, as Claire knows, really does matter. And
Yes.
whether we as a community, I know we've been through the Windrush thing and we've not handled that particularly well, but this one is handleable. The enemy is the local authority primarily and the Metropolitan Police. Neither of them having a
Agents in
reputation.
our community.
Yeah, and the enemies within. Now, so they are fightable successfully. And what we have to do is assemble the will and the resources to do it. And they're talking about human resources, legal resources, monetary resources. Let's talk
Family,
about that
I need you to
next.
get ready for Next Strong. I need you to let the family know that Next Strong, we are going to be black here. We're going to be talking about, you know, where we go from here to take back Notting Hill Carnival. This is a really important conversation to have. We must organize to take back Carnival. We have to be able to leave Carnival as a legacy to the next generation. And we need to learn from this so that it never leaves our hands again. When we get it back, we have to manage it in a way to ensure that the local authorities, the agents, and those who want to claim responsibility for their own, you know, ego or shego, don't get their hands on it again. Family, you know, this is too much of an entity for us.
There's one other thing that I think we should talk about, because Carnival has been through some changes. Sound systems are under pressure. Mass bands are under pressure, and
Masquerade people.
yeah,
It's not,
and the
it's not
whole
friends,
the
it's-
whole of that change also needs to be understood by our people, because it has meaning. What has happened in terms of spaces available in which people can prepare their bands and so on. All of that has changed under our feet in the last 20, 30 years. And entities like the Educational Authority, the ILIA, disappeared and so on. So there's been some really big changes that also matter in terms of how we as a community find space and resources to do the kind of cultural work and cultural creative work that used to be done a generation or two ago by our people. And that too needs to be understood.
We need Elder Echaba and his friend back again as well. I've got a message in the chat saying that we need to team up with Sir Arthur France, who heads up Leeds Carnival. Please get in touch with him, ask him, send him the video, ask him to tune in Next Strong as well. There may well be key players around the country who, could actually assist us in getting the carnival back. We're 1 minute away from the top of the hour. I want to thank each and every one of you in our audience for staying with us throughout the night. Please do make sure you give the video a like to raise it up the algorithms, and please do share. We've got to take responsibility. Someone's in the chat saying, not all skin folk are king folk, and and we're certainly finding out that in this situation that we're in at the moment. So Next Strong, we're going to look at maybe the case that we need to build as a community to take back Carnival. And the education that's going to need to go out there with it. And we need clarity about what our role needs to be as well. But family, you know, if we don't do this for the next generation, it will be absolutely, we shouldn't be able to rest in our graves. We've got to take back Carnival. Too much blood and tears. I mean, it was literally built on the blood of our ancestors. We have to take it back, and we have to give it back, you know, to the store sellers, the masquerade people, the sound system people, the party goers, you know, and it has to be mapped, and the safety element has to come back. I am just so fearful that these people are just going to allow a tragedy to happen, you know, to justify maybe even, they probably will never cancel it because economically it's too profitable to bring it into Hyde Park or something ridiculous like that. Dr. Claire, thank you so much for coming today. We look forward to you returning next strong. Elder Cecil, Professor Gutzmore, thank you so much as well. All being well, we'll see you next strong. To everybody in the audience, thank you so much. Please do leave your comment about this on the outside of the video as well, in the description beneath the video. That's so important. And I hope to see some of you, if not all of you, this weekend as well at my Black History Month weekend. Do support. We're talking about the lack of support. Please do support. Thank you so much. Sister Shanice, out of here for now. Bye for now.